You know, we've been big into organic farming, regenerative farming, even some of our commercial farming.
I'm a startup entrepreneur. I'm going to be the guy on the panel that nobody knows and maybe nobody will ever know. Or we're going to be very loud here in a few months.
I sort of understood how corrupt and broken the financial system is, and I started to see the similarities in the medical system.
Earlier we had a panel that was about pattern recognition, and the way I got into learning more about health.
Our system is unfortunately perversely incentivized. We don't have drugs that cure disease, we have drugs that treat disease.
I started my business selling out of a pickup truck, opened my first little retail store when I was 18 and just started farming a little bit of tomatoes.
And I'm a business startup guy, so I started a consulting firm that would we'd consult with hospitals how to increase their bill.
Welcome to the panel, guys. I'm joined by some really awesome people that I'm excited to talk to and also for you guys to hear about. Unlike the last few panels, this is not going to be technical at all. It's going to focus more on something that we all have in common, which is our health, taking care of our health, centralized healthcare, and making sure our lives are not just long, but have a good quality of life. So I'll let everyone here introduce themselves, and then we'll get started.
Yeah, thanks for having me here, guys. My name is Dr. Shawn Baker. I am the Chief Medical Officer and co-founder of a company called Revero Health. We focus on root cause treatment. We get people off medications. We put diseases into remission. And I also am known as the author of the Carnivore diet. So I also dabble in eating a lot of meat.
My name is Alfie Oakes, owner and founder of Seed to Table and Oaks Farms.
Yes, give it up to Seed to Table.
Yeah. I hope to see you all at Seed to Table tonight. No, we've been big into organic farming, regenerative farming, and even some of our commercial farming. We've discontinued products like Roundup, glyphosate, and diet has been a big part of the last 20 years of my life of educating people. We have a field trip farm, and I'm actually collaborating with Dan here on putting some wellness domes at the old Oaks Farms location that went underwater in the hurricane. You're maybe, if you're familiar with that location, I'm hoping to do a new store there with an anti-aging kind of biohacking cellular health clinic there soon. And we're all about eating good healthy food and getting rid of the processed garbage that so many people are consuming today.
Hello, my name's Dan Schmidt. I'm a startup entrepreneur. I'm going to be the guy on the panel that nobody knows and maybe nobody will ever know. Or we're going to be very loud here in a few months because we're partnering with Alfie. There's about 4 or 5 sites in Naples. What I've done for the last 25 years is not so much study what makes a body sick, but what makes a society sick. And that's what I want to bring to the table. We have a way that we believe that with what we're setting up here in Naples, we can curate a solution that changes culture. And if we change culture properly, we have the ability to create a new model that makes the old model obsolete. And I think that is exactly in the same realm of what Bitcoin is doing. So we're kind of partners in that, in the same goal. But we're launching this in Naples, and the reason I'm here is just to, I guess, kind of announce that. Talk more about that later.
My name is Ahmad Ammous. I'm a medical doctor. I went down the Bitcoin rabbit hole when I was in medical school, and I sort of understood how corrupt and broken the financial system is, and I started to see the similarities in the medical system. And now I help people get healthy without pills, the natural way, try to help people escape the medical system's matrix.
That's awesome. And earlier we had a panel that was about pattern recognition, and the way I got into learning more about health was Bitcoin first, which opened my eyes more towards a health-conscious lifestyle, which is actually when I saw Ahmad's brother and Baker's podcast they did together, and that's when I became a carnivore because it just made common sense. Because right now in the healthcare system, we live in let's treat the symptom, not the actual underlying disease. And I want to just hear more on your thoughts on that, Dr. Baker.
Yeah, sure. So I spent 20 years as practicing orthopedic surgeon. Did thousands and thousands of surgeries, never gave too much thought about how nutrition impacted my patients other than making sure they weren't, completely nutrient deficient prior to bringing them to the operating room. Well, like every other surgeon in my situation. Our healthcare system is unfortunately perversely incentivized. We don't have drugs that cure disease, we have drugs that treat disease. And there's a very critical distinction between those two concepts. And there's a very significant financial difference between those as well. As you guys see, more and more drugs are developed. The more drugs we have, the more disease we have to treat. And we create markets with disease. I would say, within the Bitcoin community, one thing you always hear about is time preference. Wait, have patience. Well, that's wonderful and all, and having good financial health is certainly correlated with good health. But if we don't take care of our health, all that waiting and low time preference is not going to be worth it, because if you end up 67 years old and I can't tell you how many patients like this that were just spending all of their free time going from doctor appointment to doctor appointment to doctor appointment. That is, in my view, almost 100% avoidable if you are willing to do a little bit of work and basically give up some of the stuff that might seem convenient, might seem temporarily pleasurable, but by doing that, you greatly improve your quality of life.
Yeah, so it sounds like the Bitcoin ethos of having a lower time preference is counter to the normal processed, ultra-processed food that we are eating in our society. And it's as a Bitcoiner, we want to live long, like Dr. Baker said. Not only do we want to live long, we want to be healthy long, so we can not only get our financial gains, but also enjoy having that financial wealth. Alfie, how did you get into regenerative farming and that entire story?
Well, so actually, I started my business selling out of a pickup truck, opened my first little retail store when I was 18, and just started farming a little bit of tomatoes and strawberries to just have a U-pick. And then I did pretty well with that, and the next year did the first commercial farm. But when I first started farming, being a first-generation farmer, having a few friends in North Fort Myers, where I went to high school there, I just started out farming kind of what I call now the poison farming. I was just farming with a lot of harsh chemicals, and that was what I knew. I was really just getting into it to make money and make product. And there's a good story in there, but not knowing what I was doing farming gave me a kind of a short season of 3 or 4 years until I went broke as I got bigger farming. I actually made a lot of money the second year. I went to Honduras and bought tomato fields and made a bunch of money, came back and tried to do a large operation and failed, and got out of farming for a while. In the meantime, my father started growing a little small 5-acre farm, and he was doing it all organically. He got into that because my mother had got sick, and with Addison's disease, he felt it was from the bad food that she had been eating, and he got into it. And when I got back into farming about 10 years after that, he had convinced me to look at the farming a different way, and we went into it growing with all organics. And now we have some regenerative farms, we have organic farms, and I even have product that we grow for public supermarkets, and that's not like all organic, but we're not using glyphosate. We're not using a lot of the harsh chemicals. We hand weed and do things like that, but we've actually found that it's economically feasible to do it that way. Sometimes the labor might be more, but we're not spending a bunch of money. The chemicals that, in my opinion, are going to the wrong companies. The same companies that are getting us sick with all this, with the food industry, are the same companies that own the chemical industry that for the farming, the same companies that are selling the pharmaceuticals. It's all the same blob of companies that are capitalizing on you basically from cradle to grave. So I'm trying to do my part in helping people break that cycle and get back to eating real food, which I eat a mostly carnivore diet. I'm not all carnivore diet by any means, but what I try to do is eat all food. The food that I put in my body is all food that man has not got his hands on, basically. I call it God's food. You can call it nature's food. But you know, when man started thinking that he could do a better job making food than God did, and started genetically modifying everything, I think that's where we went off the rails. And then with this ultra processed food that is now, I've heard statistics where recently that 85% of the food that's being consumed now in this country is ultra processed. I don't know if that stat is correct. You might have better data on that, but that's really sad. And that it's a very clear example of why our health in this country and most of the world is in the shape that it is right now.
Yeah, they're just another example of following the money and where's the money leading you to, and what is the financial incentive behind those companies that are creating that food, getting us sick, keeping us in the sick care system, instead of just treating the underlying disease. Dan, I've actually been to your domes a few times, big fan of them. If you guys live in Naples, you like cold plunges, steam room, it is the best place by far in Naples to go. But share a little bit about why you created it, what you're trying to accomplish, and as well as what you're partnering with Alfie on.
Yeah, so I've done startups my whole life. So one of the first companies I started back in the 90s was something that eventually became the largest claim producer in the United States. So we would, as geeky as it sounds, it's a back office. We would take all the claim data from patients, send out checks to the doctors, send out EOBs to the patients. And I'm a business startup guy, so I started a consulting firm that would we consult with hospitals how to increase their bills. And then I had another consulting firm that would audit bills to reduce them. And you start looking, none of these companies should exist in a real world if we were doing things. The companies that I started shouldn't exist. I have a company right now that's a large dollar, we're a cost containment company. So we audit, multi-million-dollar bills, and we try to reduce them, and we get paid on the savings. That company should not exist. So I look at this and I start gathering all this data and realize, we're so broken, and I don't know if anybody really has their arms around how the healthcare system works. But the bean counters, they have insight in all this. So we had really great insight, and over the years, I've done just a ton of research. I work with people, doctors from Harvard, all these people, all claiming they're going to find the root cause analysis. But at the end of the day, what I've discovered for what I'm bringing to the table when we're starting out at Alfie's is if we regulate our nervous system properly, because that's what we all have, is a dysregulated nervous system. So we're batteries, we're electrical beings. And if we take care of that electrical being, our brain body's in coherence, it knows how to heal itself. So the game is we can try to do all these things that are healthy. At the same time, the other side of that is we process our unhealthy habits, we're still healthy. So I focus more on the processing side, and I realize, well, if I can calm that nervous system down to a neutral state and take it from a sympathetic fight or flight mode to a parasympathetic mode, the body knows how to heal itself. And that's been proven more and more, and we couple that with neuroscience. That, we all have heard of the placebo effect, but we don't ask the question is, well, why does the placebo effect work? It works because you think it's going to work. So our brains, when we believe something, has a crazy capacity to heal ourselves. And guys like Joe Dispenza has proved that. But you aren't going to change your brain unless you calm your nervous system. So step one of anything in health is to calm down that nervous system. And as simple as that may sound, it can be done with cold plunges, contrast therapy, things that are dirt cheap that I think would probably reduce our healthcare costs by 50 to 70% if we just got that adopted as a cultural thing in society, where we go to that first for our step one to heal ourselves. So that's the kind of insight I had by seeing all the corruption that's in the industry. And just as a data point, if you look at our average cost per patient, we are double the next country. So when we are double the next country, it's not to say, oh, we're the best healthcare country in the world. We're not. We suck at it. We are double the cost because we really don't know what we're doing. We really don't know what health is. And unfortunately, our healthcare industry has become one of our largest contributors to death. That's not how it's supposed to be. So that's some of the initiatives we're taking on that. Besides healthcare, look at the same thing in education, arts and media, religion, spirituality, the family, and economics. What has happened in a sick society, we end up accomplishing opposite of what our original intention was. So we're sick. So how do we correct that? Well, we got to go to each one of those and find out what is the root cause problem, root cause solution, And in each one of these pillars of society, reverse that, and that changes culture. And everything in this world is downstream from culture. All politicians will follow culture, all laws will follow culture, but you can't reverse it the other way around. You can't create culture out of laws. It doesn't work. So that's what we're trying to do at Alfie's, is show a way where we can change all these things at once to build a new model that makes the old model obsolete, so we, in effect, cure our culture. And if we cure our culture, everything else will fall in line.
That's amazing. Ahmed, so share with me more about your journey with what led you down to, pursue health, carnivore, and all that, and everything that goes into it.
Yeah, I mean, my story was I was in medical school, and I was just, all the patients that I was seeing, nobody was getting better. People were doing the medications that were prescribed to them. They were doing all the blood work. They were doing everything they're supposed to do, and they weren't getting better. And I just got curious about, why is this happening? I've worked so hard to get into medical school. I still have so many more years to study, and I'm only going to be helping people just alleviate symptoms and not actually heal themselves. And I got curious, and I started reading, and I discovered that, well, actually online, people heal themselves with diet. People heal themselves by going outside, by moving. And this is how you actually heal disease, is you address the root cause, which is lifestyle. Pills will never heal anyone. Pills just alleviate symptoms. And I think we underestimate how toxic and harmful pills are. Pills are the third leading cause of death in the Western world. And so this is pills that are prescribed the way they should be. Pills are absolutely toxic to the body, but nobody wants to talk about that because the studies discussing this are written by the pharmaceutical industry. So it's a giant scam. It's a huge system that is in control of so much of our lives, and so many people are stuck in the medical system, stuck on pills. And the easy answer, the way out of this is just reconnecting with nature, reconnecting with your body, eating healthy, living a healthy lifestyle, fixing your nervous system, fixing your relationships. But no doctor will ever tell you that.
I wonder if there's a financial incentive for them not to tell you that. So you and Dr. Baker both were in medical school. You spent time learning how to heal patients. How much of that time did they focus on nutrition?
Yeah, I mean, it's not surprising. We don't spend a lot of time. We get some basic training in nutrition, fundamentals about what deficiencies cause what diseases, and a little bit of the typical kind of USDA food guide guidelines, but not much beyond that. I never once in my life learned how a diet change could lessen the symptoms of arthritis. I never once in my life learned that a diet could put depression into remission. And these are things I see clinically every single day. So again, it's not that physicians are bad people. It's not that physicians don't care or want to help. They just don't have the tools to do it other than what they've been trained in. And again, what they've been trained in is pharmacology for the most part, and some surgical procedures. And that is the more profitable model, and that is what the healthcare system is. And if you don't, sort of regurgitate that, then you are considered a quack or an outcast or a heretic. And honestly, I'm quite proud to wear
I have
that
all those in
label.
my Twitter profile.
I was labeled the #1 misinfluencer in the world recently by the World Economic Forum, Eat Lancet group. So anyway.
Ahmed, what was your experience similar, or what would you like to add to that?
What I would like to add is it's not just a free market problem where the pharmaceutical industry is so big and so rich, and that's why this is what's happening. What's happening is the reason the pharmaceutical industry is so big is because it's supported by the government. The reason the pharmaceutical industry makes so much money is because there are patents which governments enforce. And this, again, why this relates to Bitcoin and why I'm on this stage right now is all of this started in the early 1900s when, of course, around the same time the Federal Reserve was created, was when the American Medical Association was created. And the goal of the American Medical Association was to suppress any form of medicine that was not pharmaceutical or pill-based. And that was, in 1910, the Flexner Report was published, and it shut down more than 60% of US medical schools. And these were medical schools that were teaching, natural healing, looking at lifestyle, looking at how to address the root cause. All of that was shut down in order to promote pharmaceutical medicine. And this is not possible if we didn't have a government with endless amount of money, if our government can't print money out of nowhere. And this is why we're in this mess we're in right now, and this is why Bitcoin fixes it.
So again, another thing that Bitcoin fixes.
If it's a problem, Bitcoin fixes it. If Bitcoin can't fix it, it's not a problem.
So speaking of Bitcoin, Alfie, I'm interested to hear your perspective on Bitcoin just in general.
Mine? So I was surprised when I was invited to a Bitcoin event. I don't have $1 worth of Bitcoin. But I did have someone that if you watch the news, I had a second in command that has stolen many millions of dollars from the company over the last 5 years. And one of the things that I found out after the feds got involved is that at one of my refrigeration facilities out in Immokalee, he had about 100 Bitcoin mine machines hooked up in the back of the cooler there, just feeding off. So when you get the electric for free, I guess you can do pretty good with the Bitcoin miners. So that's really my only exposure I've ever had to Bitcoin is providing the electricity to someone that was stealing it from me. But
You've had a chance during today to hear a little bit about Bitcoin. Have you been persuaded maybe to buy some?
I'm more persuaded to maybe look into taking Bitcoin, accepting Bitcoin at Seed to Table, getting set up to do something like that.
So who here has been to Seed to Table? If Seed to Table accepted Bitcoin, who would be happy? Also, if you've never been to Seed to Table, they have the best urinals in town. Highly recommend going there. You have some great art. The Naples people know. Dan, what is your experience with Bitcoin and your health?
I have a very direct experience. About 10 years ago, I took a bunch of high school kids to an entrepreneur day. And so they were presenting their business plan to a bunch of academics. And one kid said, hey, I'm going to start a Bitcoin mining company. And the academics were reviewing, and they weren't sure what that was. They evaluated, so on. Another person was describing this idea of creating this little pole device. It was 3 feet long that you'd put on the side of your 10-speed of your bike because the law said that you can't go closer than 3 feet to a bicyclist. And that sounded so cute and neat. This kid won first place. And it was just ridiculous. It's a product that'll never work, never go anywhere, and the Bitcoin kid didn't win anything. So that was my start of it, but what I became personally more interested in was how can our academics be so stupid? And they are everywhere. Professors in college, and sorry if anybody here is a professor, but they're so far removed from the real world, they are actually literally stupid. And when you get an education system that teaches people that the accumulation of knowledge is the ultimate pinnacle, and they ignore the accumulation of experience, that's when we have a corrupt education system. We're teaching exactly the wrong thing. We need to have an education system that helps people gain experience, because that is the ultimate knowledge we have as human beings, is to gain experience so we can determine what is good and pursue that which is good by the human cognition, not by an economic model that serves the accumulation of capital just for the sake of capital. If we're not doing good in our startups, what are we doing startups for? Where have we lost the way? Because if we're doing the startups the correct way, we're there to serve society, to actually solve a problem or an opportunity that does good, and you get paid well for that. That's been replaced since the year 2000, where people find all kinds of ways to make money on money for the sake of money. And that is the disease that I think Bitcoin can help correct in a decentralized network if we also at the same time decentralize innovation, which for the first time in history, I think we have the capability of doing. So.
Yeah, it's amazing to hear just how the education system has not grown and changed their curriculum, and they're still teaching the same outdated information, and it really just sets people behind. But Dr. Baker, being in the Bitcoin space, eating, on the carnivore diet, what are some of the things and crossovers that you see between the two? And what are you surprised about in terms of the Bitcoiners accepting the carnivore diet?
Well, I mean, to accept the concept of Bitcoin, you have to think outside the box a little bit. You have to sort of unplug yourself from the matrix. And I think, and this is the one thing, I can't remember who was talking to me earlier, he said, you know what, at the Bitcoin dinner last night, there weren't a lot of sick, obese people. And I think that's not a coincidence. I think people that unplug themselves from the matrix in generally find themselves to be healthier, both financially, physically, mentally, spiritually, and a whole other thing. So I think that's sort of a common finding. I got into Bitcoin from Ahmed's brother, Saif. He approached me the first time I was on Joe Rogan's podcast and said, hey, let's write a book about this. And then he said, I got another side project, which turned out to be the Bitcoin Standard. So we never wrote the book together, so I wrote my own. I think this is something that, I've got another book in progress right now, by the way. And I think that, this is a start, a carnivore diet, whether you do it or not. I'm pretty agnostic about that, quite honestly. I prefer it that. I think it's very therapeutic, but there are a lot of things that go into getting healthier. This is just one of those. And I think I think Bitcoin is often an entry point for a different way of thinking for a lot of people, because once you find out that they've lied to you about this, and you say, well, what else did they start lying about? And then all of a sudden you realize they basically lied about everything. So anyway, here we are.
Well, yeah, they literally turned the food pyramid upside down. But one thing that all of us Bitcoiners have in common, none of us came out understanding Bitcoin from the start. We all had to literally look into it with an open mind and be curious to learn something that we had no idea about, which spreads its tentacles into all the different aspects, such as the money, the health, the farmers, and all the other stuff that is corrupt because of the fiat money. Ahmed, you and your brother both have been on the carnivore diet. What is your experience with the Bitcoin community, and why sound money is so important to sound health?
Going back to time preference, the very, very high time preference way of looking at health is, I just want a pill right now to get rid of this.
Does everyone know what high time preference means? Perfect.
We're in a Bitcoin conference, come on.
You never know. We don't know what part of the bull run we're in.
So the very high time preference thing is just to take a pill to numb the symptoms and get rid of the problem. The low time preference way is, let me listen to what these symptoms are telling me. What is it in my lifestyle that I need to fix? Why is my back hurting? What did I start doing recently different in the last few weeks? That sort of thinking is not, that requires a certain dedication to your body, a certain dedication to your life, a certain outlook that favors the future. And Bitcoiners tend to have that. The average patient that I see in the hospital is still stuck at, they want the solution right now. And that's why they also don't get Bitcoin. So it goes hand in hand, I think.
Yeah, some doctor, you'll go there, they'll give you a pill, you'll feel better for an hour or two, maybe you want to lose weight, they might push Ozempic, and those aren't low time preference things, those are immediate gratification, and immediate gratification does not set you up for long-term success. So a lot of this is all, common sense that we were told is the complete opposite. We were told we're crazy for eating a carnivore diet, that your cholesterol is going to be high. And I remember when you were on Rogan, you had a study that was going to be coming out in a couple of years. Did those results ever come out about cholesterol, Shawn?
Yeah, sure they did. There's been a couple studies that come out, and cholesterol is probably the biggest sort of sticking point many people have for not only adopting a fully carnivorous diet, but it's the diet that includes a lot of saturated fat. And as you alluded to, the food pyramid did get flipped upside down. If you guys have seen the graphic that RFK and Secretary Rollins put out, it is a complete inverted pyramid, and that was done very intentionally. It wasn't just a South Park episode, although they may have paid homage to those guys for that. And as you read that pyramid from left to right, first item you run to is what? Anybody looked at it? It's a ribeye steak, literally. It's like a ribeye steak is the first thing you see to eat. That, again, was done very, very intentionally. And I think that, and this is the point for some of you guys who were there last night, and I'll say this, I'm sure all of us, Bitcoin success depends upon adoption and utilization by everybody. You know, it can't be just the Michael Saylors and a few large corporations that do it. We've all got to do it for it to be successful. And the same thing with the Make America Healthy Again movement. I mean, it's not, I mean, God bless, you know, Robert F. Kennedy for doing what he's doing, but he is up against a leviathan of corruption, of you know, trillions of dollars of equity, of legal fights that are going to last for years and years. And so we have to, as a population, say, look, I'm just not going to eat the poison anymore. I'm not going to pay for it. I'm not going to give you money to poison me anymore. And I think that's what we have to do. You know, that's my sermon for the day.
So, Alfie, you have a grocery store. You know, like most grocery stores, if you shop on the outside aisles and you really just ignore the middle aisles, you're going to eat more of God's food. So, how is it as a grocery store owner and having that in your store? Is it kind of like bittersweet, or do you try to make sure you only work with products that are whole food based?
Well, if you go through Seed to Table, you notice there aren't many aisles in there. Maybe that, but when I went to a share group meeting like 15 years ago when I was telling these guys that I was going to build this store that had no aisles, because they were all, actually at this particular meeting, they were all crying about how Amazon was getting into the kind of shelf-stable, what they call center of the store, all the national brands, and that the margin was becoming thin, and they were crying, you know, most of the margin in the grocery business is on the perimeter, which would be like your, you know, your fresh baked goods and produce and meat and seafood and things like that. So I told them I was going to build a store that didn't have any aisles in it, and because I didn't want to sell any of the national brand garbage anyway, right? So and I knew how bad it was, and so that was kind of like the initial thought that started Seed to Table. Then you know, I wanted to make it a place. I thought about the places in you know, long time ago where people go to the market on the weekends and enjoy some entertainment and things like that. So I just wanted to have the fun vibe, and we really, Seed to Table is more about all the perimeter and very few national brands at all in Seed to Table there. If you want to buy a Pepsi, you can. We charge a lot of money for it. I try to discourage people to not, and you can buy one of them. You can't buy a six-pack. You can buy one Pepsi if some people just want that with their food, and I don't want to, you know, it's a free society, I guess, if you want to put that garbage in your body. But it all comes from education. I was spending a good amount of time with Bobby Kennedy before the election. I was actually asked by Trump to be the ag secretary, and I spent a lot of time with him. And his main focus there before even Trump was elected is that the way that we're going to change this is by education. The people, like individually, have to make those choices by us getting the truth out to people, so that you won't line up at the McDonald's, or you won't line up or go to the grocery store and buy Lucky Charms and all of that other garbage, right? So as soon as the education happens and people stop buying that, then the companies that sell this are going to have to make the decisions, you know, make the business decisions that will be the right decision for them to discontinue that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like knowledge is power. And once you know it, nobody can actually go to the grocery store for you, buy the stuff that you should be eating. Nobody can go work out for you. You have to do that actual work yourself. So with all of this information that you get, is it going to motivate you to just say, you know, it is what it is. I'm going to continue eating the same diet. I'll go to the doctor. I'm not going to change my life habits, because lifestyle is also very important here. And this is available to everybody in this room, because we all want to live a long time. We want to have family. We want to be there for our young ones. We want to see them get older, have grandkids. So this is not just a talk about money at a Bitcoin conference. This is, what are you going to do about your health to make sure you are your best version of yourself and you can have a high quality of life for a long duration of time. And Dan, what are some of the benefits that you see from like the cold plunge contrast with the steam room? Because I found that very fascinating the first time that I went.
Well, we call it the step one reboot protocol, because no matter what ails you, if you can slow down and or halt that automated, let me say it a different way. No matter what ails you, you're participating in it. That's something we're not explaining to people in our healthcare industry. And what I mean by that, whether it's consciously, lifestyle, yeah, I'm doing this, eating this crap and blah, 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 or it's unconscious, where you're doing a lot of things, which is actually more common, it's unconscious. So if we want to change a habit, we have to rewrite the neural pathways. And if you're hijacked all the time because you're eating crap, you're not exercising, you're doing different things, When you're hijacked, your body's in fight or flight mode, which means, no, we're just going to continue to do the same thing, because that's the easiest thing to do. So that's why I call it step one, because if it's a physical thing, we're going to stop that response and put your body into healing mode. If it's an intellectual thing, we're going to stop those thoughts and give you new ways of thinking.